The opinions expressed in the following programming are those of the individual DJ and not necessarily reflective of the CKXU Radio Society as a whole. Listener discretion is advised. The opinions expressed in the following... The opinions expressed...
Are you listening?
The fact of the matter is, I don't think you're listening to me at all, and that's of great concern.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. You are listening to 88.3 CKXU FM. This is a subject, our regular Friday night program here at 7 p.m. on CKXU. I am your host, Ben Christensen. Joining me in studio, my co-host, as usual, and partner in crime, Mr. Thomas Stone.
Good evening, Lethbridge.
And this week on the subject, we are addressing an issue. Normally, we do our What Happened portion of the program. We do have a story to cover for that, which we'll get to in a moment. But this week, we want to let you know what we're talking about, just so you are aware in ahead of time. And this gives you an opportunity to decide whether you want to listen to the program tonight or not. Tonight, we are talking about yet another controversial subject, which we're known for on this program. Tonight, we're talking about bullying, and we will have some very special guests joining us for our program tonight. So hopefully it's something you're going to look forward to hearing about, because it's a subject that we ourselves decided was something that needed to be discussed on the program. And so without further ado, we reached the What Happened portion of the program. It's actually a story I wanted to cover last week here, but we filled up last week, so we're going to talk about it this week. Rick Mercer actually came out with one of his more recent rants on veterans care, blasting the Harper government and the way that veterans care has been happening. And to me, I can't agree more with the guy than how absurd it is that one of our veterans in this country, an individual who served for a country, lost limbs for this country, is expected to prove as a veteran, in order to receive his veteran's pension, that he has not lost that he has lost his legs and that his legs have not grown back. He actually is required by the pensioner's office to provide a medically documented letter from his physician to the pensioner's office to prove that his legs have not grown back. Not only is this completely absurd, it's unfounded. It's insulting. Thomas, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much I could say on this, but for any government office, whether it's Canada, U.S., any country, any government office in the world, to expect that some limb is going to grow back when that has never, as far as I know, that's never happened. The human body, unfortunately, does not work that way, and to me, that's just signs of an irresponsibly run system. That's what that is. I mean, it's disgraceful. It's there's no reason why anyone who has sacrificed, their life for this country, As Rick Mercer says,
Well,
there's no reason why they should be lined up at a Service Canada office, waiting to talk to somebody.
You know what? I'm just going to say it. That officially goes down in the history of this country as the biggest and most offensive farce ever perpetrated in the history of this country.
Oh, yeah.
To any veteran out there, to any member who has served this country, lost limbs for this country, and has experienced the most atrocious and disturbing conditions for this country.
Well, yeah.
And the thank you he gets for his service is that they make a mockery of his condition.
Well, I can't remember who was the former minister for that department. I should remember his name, but I don't. However, the veterans, the day that they got to voice their opinions on this, they left very outraged. And, the minister at the time, it's been replaced, thankfully.
Well, they did get to voice their opinions. The minister shut them out.
Well, what I'm trying to say is that all he could offer them was basically, if you have a concern, here's a 1-800 number to dial, and they can help you. It's just like, are you serious? You're going to give a veteran a 1-800 number to dial and sit on hold for who knows how long? I mean, it's shameful. It's disgusting. There's no...
That takes me back to the series of veterans that committed suicide because they couldn't get assistance for the post-traumatic stress. It's no different. This is an issue, and this is an issue that is not being addressed, that needs to be addressed. And this country, quite frankly, needs to wake the hell up and pay attention to these people, because these are the people putting their lives on the line for your safety, your security, your freedom. And what are we giving them in return? Nothing. We're giving them the middle finger.
Well, actually, this sort of actually ties into our subject, bullying. The veterans actually feel like they're being bullied by someone who feels like they are superior to them.
They're being bullied by an ignoramus who wears a suit every day, sits behind a desk, probably has never served a day in his life, probably gets a cushy government paycheck that the pensioners could only dream of receiving, and in all essence is being funded by our government to be an ignorant, suited jackass, in a nutshell.
Yeah, well, that's it's nothing sort of shameful that our veterans have to go through
beyond shameful.
all this.
It's an absolute disgrace, and it's uncalled for.
If there's one group of people that I do believe should be able to jump the queue as far as getting help from government, it's veterans.
Well, you see people lined up at the welfare office every morning, and they're not getting help.
No, yeah, that's
There's
just
people
it.
at the Veterans Affairs office lined up out the door, and they're not getting help. Who is our country helping, if not the people employed by the government? And quite frankly, I think that those people, the people who are being employed who are being employed as social workers, and this is my final thought, those are the people, by a mandate, should be lawfully required to attend a program where they spend 1 week living in poverty with the insult of a paycheck that our welfare system provides single individuals. They should be expected for 1 week to live like the people they're serving.
Yeah.
Because only then would they actually have the insight and some level of compassion for the people they're serving, and an understanding of what those people are going through.
Well, it's actually interesting because as far as I know, I don't know much about the U.S., but I believe North America as a whole is like the only continent that basically gives all government branches and bodies essentially have a guaranteed life handed to them on a silver platter at the taxpayer's expense. As far as I know, Germany, Switzerland, Norway, Australia, it doesn't work like that. They don't. I think that's something you have to earn, and I agree with that kind of system. You have to earn that. You have to show that you actually are interested.
You have to. In my opinion, there's far too many overly entitled, pompous, clueless ignoramuses who work behind the desk, have never suffered or been in debt or been without food and gas and nearly homeless a day in their lives, and they're expected to somehow sit for 8 hours a day and be compassionate to the people they're serving. It's a broken system, folks, and it needs to change.
Yep.
That's it for this week for what happened. That said, we're going to move on here, and we're going to get right into it. This week we're talking about bullying, and we all know what bullying is. It's when somebody is harassed, picked on, teased. It's when somebody is emotionally, physically, or I guess even sexually abused by their peers, their family members, at school, in the workplace. We're not just talking about bullying on the playground here, folks. We're talking about bullying in the workplace, bullying in life. We're talking about bullying in relationships. We're talking about bullying in any circumstance. And at the end of the day, it does not matter which one of these categories, if you're a victim of bullying you fall into, it's one and the same. It starts when we're young. But oftentimes, that bullying behavior is fostered by the parents. And the children are just replicating and imitating the behaviors of the adults they put their confidence and trust in to raise them right. And it is a behavior that can be stopped. On that note, we have two very special guests joining us this week for the program to weigh in on that. So without further ado, we are going to switch over here and let you enjoy an interview that we had with an individual. This individual goes by the name of Levi Lafont. He is a public motivational speaker who runs an anti-bullying campaign and an anti-bullying awareness campaign by speaking and running seminars for local school districts. And he's a victim of bullying himself. Instead of being emotionally battered by it, he was able to find the positive in it. This motivated him to become a speaker and a touring speaker on the subject. So without further ado, we're going to move over to our interview here with Mr. Lafont. I hope you enjoy, and thank you, folks, for tuning in.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. You're listening to The Subject here on 88.3 CKXU-FM. I am your host, Ben Christensen, and with me is my co-host, Mr. Thomas Stone.
Good evening, everyone, as usual.
And this week's episode, we're doing a discussion on bullying. Joining us in studio here via telephone is our very special guest, Mr. Levi Lafont, apologies. And Levi is a advocate and public speaker who speaks out on bullying in high schools, public workplace settings, and so forth. Levi, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Excellent. And Levi, just to start off, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your involvement in the anti-bullying campaign?
All right. Well, I guess it started off a few years ago. I was bullied myself and decided that I had the ability to help others with the lessons I had learned in overcoming being a victim, I should say. And just started calling up schools and asking if I could go in and speak, and it started from there.
Awesome. And I've had the privilege of being able to attend one of your speaking seminars, and very, very informative. Tell us a little bit about your experiences with bullying and how it's affected you.
My experiences with bullying has actually been, at the time that it was happening, during like junior high, elementary, and high school, I hated it, but it's actually been quite a blessing to me because it's enabled me to help other people in a circumstance that isn't that great, and it's really what you do with what happens to you in life, right? So that's just kind of how I found it, and then turned it into a good thing.
And that is an amazing insight. And so, basically, what is your mission and your from your experiences with bullying? I mean, you must have experienced a lot of depression, sadness, and stuff like that. I mean, what did you experience on an emotional level when you were being bullied, and how did you deal with that?
Yeah, well, this is actually what I talk about during my classes, because it's really how to deal with those things, rather than saying not bully. Pretty much, there's the anger, there's the depression, there's the sadness, there's the feeling of being alone, and there's all kinds of tools that you can use to get over that. And it doesn't happen overnight. I wish it did, and I wish I had a magic tool that you could make all this go away. But it really comes down to is just finding a group of people that you can really hang out with, a support group, is one really, really key way. Others is challenging yourself so you can build up your own confidence, because at the point where you've been knocked down enough times, you don't feel confident in who you are as a person anymore, and so you have to find little wins. Do you know what I mean by little tiny wins?
Kind of, sort of, but maybe for the sake of the listeners, might explain
that.
Yeah,
so it's like, if you are challenging yourself in a way that you normally would normally make you feel uncomfortable. Say if you're afraid of heights and you decide to try out rock climbing for the day, and you actually make it to the top. For someone that's afraid of heights and they make it to the top of the tower or whatever, that's a huge win for that person, and that's a huge boost into the confidence of that person. And so it's something that can be taken away from them. No matter what anybody says or does to that person, they still got to the top of the tower. That no one can take that away. And so just little things like that over and over and over can actually build up a person back to the point where it doesn't matter what people do or say to them. They don't really mind, because they know who they are and who they're not.
So essentially, what you're saying is you conquer that fear or that reservation that you have, and you find confidence and strength in what was before a weakness, essentially.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, I have a question for you, Levi. Bullying is something that I certainly have had my fair share of experiences with growing up, and I have found personally that the school system's response to this issue, in my opinion, has been, within the last decade or so, has been considerably lacking. And I think that, I understand that there's a lot more measures now and a lot bigger. The issue has been made a lot bigger issue, which is good, because it needs to come to the forefront. But do you think that the way that the school system has responded to this issue has dealt with it accordingly? Has it reduced the issue? Is it getting more awareness out there? How do you see the reaction?
I think there is a lot more awareness, parents, especially among the parents.
Yeah.
Because usually you get the parents that, oh no, my little Johnny would never do that.
Oh yes. Oh yeah.
Right, and that's such a common thing, and then it just gets worse and perpetrates it, because then the parent takes away the responsibility from the child for doing those things.
Oh yeah.
So the issue, like where it goes, that is, they have gone a little bit harder on bullies, like as far as punishment, but I'm not entirely sure that that's the way to go, because if a bully is bullying someone, it's because they're in pain, it's because they hurt too. The only difference between bullying and a victim is bully puts their pain onto other people, and the victim kind of turns it back into themselves and snowballs within their own being. So really, a bully needs help and support, and they need friends and love just as much as the victim does, and that's the only way that it will stop. A punishment only kind of makes it more.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think that every critical social issue always has some kind of a root cause, and I would agree with you. I think that we need to be diving for and searching for what are the root causes. Why are kids feeling the need to sort of dominate other kids and, overpower them emotionally and physically? Why are kids having this feeling that they have to be superior to other people and things like that? What are these parents teaching these kids that makes them feel inferior, so that they feel like they have to be, the dominant person in their immediate friend circle? And I think that that's once we get to the root issue, I think, is where we're going to find better success in dealing with this issue. I mean, outside of laws and things like that.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's coming down to treating this, like, not treating the symptoms, but treating the source. And bullying, the action of bullying is just a symptom of it all. At the end of the day, it's just a symptom. There's kids, and it's not just kids, it's adults too. Adults go through the exact same thing. Does it really stop in after high school finishes? Because there's tons of workplace bullying. It just comes down to really empowering people to feel confident in their own beings, like I was saying before. And it's, when you have the world and society and the media knocking you down for, oh, you should be like this, you should be like that, it's hard to figure out who you are. And the media really does pinpoint that on kids a lot and saying who they should be because, they want to get the consumerism up.
And so, I mean, what it comes down to, from what you're saying, is essentially before we even are formed and leaving that and moving into that adult world, we're already establishing an identity for ourselves and being shaped into something that we may not necessarily be, but we believe we are because of what's branded upon us.
Yeah, and it's not just media; it's parents. Parents and family are actually one of the worst culprits for this.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of the school bullies that are the worst bullies at school are getting hammered at home by their own parents, and siblings too. And that doesn't mean physically. There's a lot of emotional abuse, and I've seen it. And a lot of those parents, I don't think, realize what they're doing. And it's been brought up to them by their parents and so on. And it's just being the one to stop that cycle.
Absolutely, and that brings me to another point here, and another question altogether is, I mean, being an adult and being in that adult workplace environment, stuff like that, because I know you've done a lot of workplace seminars as well, trying to promote anti-bullying within the workplace as well. Is there a difference between bullying in the workplace for adults versus how children would engage in bullying?
Absolutely. Adults are more sneaky. Because if you're a bully that's grown up throughout school and you're still bullying in the workplace, you've had a lot of time to figure it out and how to get really good at it. So you get really good at not getting caught, for one, and being able to do it in a way that seems untangible to your victim, per se, that it doesn't make sense to them, but they're still hurt and you still win, but the victim doesn't really understand where it's coming from at certain points.
I think I mean we're about 10 minutes into our interview here. Before we get too far, I'd like to get into the legal side of this equation of bullying. I'm not sure if you're aware, but I mean the government of Canada has come up with many anti-bullying campaigns, and they're now making laws about cyberbullying and passing laws that say that the government can essentially spy on private communications to combat bullying and things like this. I mean, do you think that those measures are appropriate, or are they misdirected? What do you think of how the law enforcement community is responding to this?
Really, I think that some of it, like if it's taking away our privacy and that sort of thing, there's some issues. I feel some issues around that. But really, the response should be this: if there's an issue, you sit both people down in a room and you get them to be friends. I've made friends with several of my bullies since then, and like my bullies from school, and it's just this is a healing process that happens that way because they feel bad too. They feel just as bad. They don't know it, but when you hurt somebody else, you're hurting yourself at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's really coming down to that healing process. And when you're having harsher laws on, okay, now you got to go to jail, or okay, there's just going to be this penalty, it doesn't help that healing process because it just kind of it makes things worse.
So basically, what you're saying is rather than making criminals out of these people, we need to be I think it personally, I think it would be, far better response to say, okay, your child is being accused of, these bullying acts. I think that the courts, instead of making these people go to jail and criminalizing it. I mean, yes, I do believe that bullying should, in some cases, be a criminal act. I'm not trying to downplay that. However, the response to that and how to treat that issue is you need to get this bullying into some kind of counseling to figure out the root cause. And I think that that's going to result in a lot of other issues coming to the surface of why that person is engaging in that behavior.
Yeah, and finding that root cause is one of the ways to deal with it. And sometimes it's just a matter of helping that person re-identify with who they truly are. A lot of this comes from mixed feelings. They don't know how to properly, accordingly react with who they are because they just don't know. And that's something that is kind of lost, I think, in a lot of our society, is that we're put into schools and you have to be a certain way and behave in accordance to a certain, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a social standard. You have to be within that. And I think that hampers a lot of people because they don't know how to handle that when that's not who they are.
And I agree with you fully. One last question before we wrap things up here, Levi. I mean, you've been an advocate for this for quite some time. Do you have any advice for youth or adults, either in school or in the workplace, who are being bullied, on what they can do to deal with this, to face it head on, so that it doesn't become a hindrance to them and ultimately an emotional downfall for them?
Absolutely. Thanks for that question. One thing that really comes down to is knowing where people are coming from. If a bully's in pain, usually what they're doing is they're actually, a lot of things that they'll pinpoint on another person is things that they don't like about themselves. And remembering that someone that's trying to hurt you is already in pain, maybe making the step forward to help them, and you're bridging that gap and you're stopping it right away. As soon as you feel bad or guilty or hurt by someone else that's doing this, you're letting them take their power away, your power. And as soon as your power's gone, they went. And so you want to keep your power and stop that flow of energy where there's that negativity that keeps cycling down. And if you can stop it head on, it works really well. Smiling, even if you don't feel like smiling, there's a chemical that kind of pops up when you force yourself to smile, and all of a sudden you're actually happy. But it takes a few minutes to work, and you can try it yourself if you want. Listening to music, having a really good support group. I was part of Scouts Canada. I swear it saved my life, having that crew of people around me at that age of where I could be myself. And that's really what it comes down to, is finding a way to rock who you are and not really care what people think about you, good and bad, and just be who you are no matter what.
Awesome. And Levi, that's sort of all we have for time right now. We want to thank you for joining us on the program here today and giving us your feedback and your thoughts on the topic. So we really appreciate you joining us, and thank you so much.
Well, thanks for inviting me.
Thanks for tuning in. You're listening to The Subject on 88.3 CKXU-FM. For those of you who are just joining us, we were just listening to an interview here that we did earlier this week with a gentleman by the name of Levi Lafont. Big shout out to Levi. And again, thank you for the time out of your very busy schedule to take a few moments with us this week and give us that very helpful and insightful interview for victims of bullying. This week, we are talking about bullying, and as I had mentioned earlier in the show, this is a topic that it hits close to home because my co-host is a victim of bullying himself, and I myself was subject to a lot of bullying in my younger years as well, and I take to heart the words of Mr. Lafont there, that a great support group, people you can go to, people who are there for you, who can love you, who can reach out to you and really embrace you through those struggles. That's ultimately probably one of the biggest help factors.
I guess from my perspective, I know we're squeezed for time. We've got so much to jam into this hour, but one of the things that Levi did say is that we have to get to the core issue. And to me, yes, although bullying is a very unfortunate circumstance to be caught up in, he's so right that bullies are going to have a issue that they're struggling with, which is why they feel the need to try to be superior over somebody else. And I think that although I agree that bullying that ends in someone hurting themselves, somebody killing themselves, it ends in some
circumstances, essentially like Amanda Todd.
Yes, I mean hers is most recent, but there are so many. But I do believe that those acts of bullying should be a criminal offense. I'm not denying that. However, I think that we spend a lot of our time focusing on legislation and not enough time focusing on treatment.
Well, legislation isn't going to fix the problem. And I feel for the victims of this. I really do. Folks like Amanda Todd, her case was sort of a unique one because it's the first case that really brought this topic to light. And there were so many before her who were sitting in the dark, who weren't getting the help they need. And my heart goes out to the victims who may have resorted because of that to suicide, to self-harm, whatever the case.
It's sad that people have. It's sad that it took somebody killing themselves for this issue to finally come to the forefront. That to me is a sadder part. We should have been talking about this years back.
This is a topic that should have been the focus of discussion long before now, and the fact that it's only now coming to light, that's concerning. On that note, we do have to take a little bit of a break here to tell you about some of the great programs that are available here, in addition to the subject on CKXU, as well as some of our helpful sponsors in the community. So stay tuned. You're listening to The Subject. We'll be back with you in just a moment.
Get your CKXU Friends card for great deals and discounts at places around Lethbridge such as...
Receive a 10% discount at Cupper's Coffee and Tea. Located at 1502 C 3rd Avenue South. At Cupper's, we love coffee.
For more details, visit ckxu.com.
Join me, your host, The Egg White, on CKXU 88.3 FM, Friday, 11 a.m. See you there.
All right, you're listening to The Subject here on 88.3 CKXU FM. I'm your host, Ben Christensen. Joining me, as usual, my co-host, Thomas Stone. And this week on The Subject, we're talking about bullying, and we have a very special guest, a second special guest joining us here this week. We have Mr. Bill Gove with Care for Bullied. He's the local representative for Care for Bullied here in the Canadian area. Welcome to the show, Bill.
Thanks, Ben. I appreciate the time and being on the show.
And likewise, we appreciate you taking the time to join us on the program here out of your busy schedule. So, Bill, I guess the first thing is just for our listeners, tell us a little bit about Care for Bullied and what sort of their objective is as an organization.
Well, our mission or vision is to provide resources for people to recover from bullying. And the site itself has content around things like, why me? A lot of people ask themselves, why did this happen to me? And there are some definite reasons why things happen to people and why people get bullied. And the other mission is to provide information through our, what we call advocates, who will be adding a lot of content around how to deal with bullying, how to identify bullying. If you need help, we will be having a tremendous amount of content in our blogs around every aspect of bullying, be it ageism, be it racism, be it bullying because of physical appearance, bullying in the workplace. Bullying is so pervasive in our society that it isn't just simply in the schoolyard where a child's being bullied. It's everywhere. That's really our mission, to help people understand it and recover from it.
Okay. Yeah, and so you're almost like a support group in a sense for bullying and victims of bullying.
Exactly, yeah.
And so, Bill, tell us a little bit about some of your experiences with bullying and what's led you to become involved with this organization.
That's an interesting question. It first began when I realized that I had been the victim of bullying, and I didn't want to say I was a victim. I wanted to say, this happened to me, and I figured it out, and now I know how to deal with it. When I first got involved with Care for Bullied, I had a particular personal situation that totally and completely blew me away. It was one of those stories that you read about, but you thought, that could never happen to me. Well, it did. And that led me to the place where I was approached by a person I've known for a long time. He said, we are working on this. Are you interested? And my initial response was, absolutely, because I realized that there was such a need for this, for people to understand what it's all about, how to identify it, and how to prevent it from, well, for some people it destroys their life. When you think about the number of teenage or school children suicides that result from bullying, it's absolutely a necessity. And then after I got into the depths of bullying and understood more and more about it, I realized my whole life I've been bullied in some way, shape, or form. And that was really the fire that ignited me to say, okay, this is something that I believe in 100%, and I want to help people. That's where I come from in terms of this particular resource hub that we are putting together. And adding really rich content and information that people may not expect to find about bullying.
And so, going to a statement you made here about bullying, not just being something that happens on the playground as children, but in the workplace. I mean, in a professional setting and in an adult world, it's something that people don't really talk about much in the adult world. And I mean, how do you? What advice would you have for people who maybe don't realize they're being bullied in an adult work environment?
Well, I would say anybody who feels uncomfortable about a particular situation or a supervisor or something that happened to them, for example, their work or their interaction with their colleagues, coworkers, has been manipulated to make them look bad, and they feel like, this is not right, what's going on here? Seek to understand. That is my biggest, how can I say it? That's my biggest message. Seek to understand, because in my own life, the more I understood about who the people are that do the bullying, the better I was able to deal with it on a personal level. And by reading about these people and understanding their behaviors, you depersonalize it. You realize, in the vast majority of cases, it's not me. I've been manipulated. My reputation has been tainted because of this person. And I have integrity. This person manipulated the situation to make me look bad, or any other number of circumstances. And adults seem to be reluctant to say, I've been bullied. But really, when you look at bullying, it's any kind of manipulation of you as a person, be it in your face bullying, be it manipulation behind your back, be it fraud, be it so many different things, be it your age, your physical appearance, your mental challenges that you may have. So really understand it is my message.
Excellent. Thomas, did you have any questions?
Well, Bill, in my personal experience, I guess I've more or less myself experienced bullying in the. We're talking more or less, I guess, the schoolyard bully type of idea. But what I have found is that it seems as though at least when I was in school so many years back, the overall response from teachers and principals was very minimal, and I think that sort of we can't really talk about bullying without mentioning people like Amanda Todd among others, and I think that's a result of the fact that we've in the last 20 years or so had a very dismal and minimal response to this issue, especially in schools. And then these kids learn these behaviors. They grow up, they get into the workplace where it becomes a much larger issue, and we end up where we are today, where it's running rampant, and it's something that's you are afraid to bring it to your superiors because you don't want to cause a divide in the workplace. And you feel like you get stuck in a catch-22. I sort of feel like this is a root cause, in schools. That's sort of what I think it's sort of the breeding ground, the start of it all, and then it spreads into adulthood and other places like that. I mean, what's your perspective on that?
Well, my perspective on that actually is twofold. I have studied and read in depth about the sociopathic and the psychopathic personality. And from the time a person is born, they may or may not have these tendencies or these brain functions, especially the amygdala in the brain that it has the empathy, has sympathy, has the emotional basis. If a person's born with that low-functioning amygdala, if they're brought up in a nurturing environment, they can be very well-functioning people in life. But if they're brought up in a non-nurturing environment, then they tend to be, as you say, the bullies. So you're right. The formative years of a child are crucial to them becoming a good citizen in the world at large. That's why bullying in schools is such a huge target these days, because, as you say, we want to raise people that are not bullies, that are not people who take advantage of others, who try to manipulate situations for their own benefit. So bullying in school is the biggest target right now, educating teachers, educating educators about bullying. In fact, I have a Twitter handle at Care for Victims, and a person down in Atlanta reached out to me when he saw that, and we connected on LinkedIn. He is starting a radio program in the U.S. specifically about bullying in schools. And he said, would you be on this radio show? I said, absolutely, that would be great, because that's where it starts. We have long-term consequences are, as you alluded to. That's really where it all starts. But at the same time, we have this problem in the adult community, in the workplace, in relationships between people, that we have bullies. We have people who manipulate others. And how do we deal with that? Because in the long term, dealing with bullying in the schoolyard, great. But we have problems in the adult world that we have to deal with as well.
Yeah, definitely, and I would fully agree with actually that's actually probably the one of the most the best answers I've gotten to that question. Another thing that often I think gets glossed over with this issue is the fact that I mean there are the health issues, there's PTSD and other health issues as a result from continuous bullying that somebody may not have the tools to deal with. But there have been many who have fallen through the cracks, didn't get the help they needed, and I mean suicide has become a huge issue when it comes to bullying, and I think it's something that it does get mentioned on the 6 o'clock news, but I think that out in the world and in reality, it's something that is it's just like homelessness. It's something that's getting lightly tossed under the rug because it seems like nobody wants to confront the big issue that's staring them right in the face. And it's apparently just too taboo for some people to want to go into that realm. But unfortunately, it is a reality. And especially when I saw the case of Amanda Todd, there's been many investigations. I mean, she's just one of many. But it's unfortunate that we seem as a society to want to wait until something gets to that level before somebody steps in and says there's a problem here.
Well, that is, unfortunately, the society that we live in. And things like mental health. I look at Bell Canada, who has done tremendous things in the workplace to address the issue of mental health. They are probably the biggest champion of this. They wanted to initiate a workplace process system for working with mental health issues. And they have brought it to the forefront. And as you say, it's a taboo. To tell someone that, for example, I have PTSD, or I have ADHD, or I have bipolar, people kind of look at you. And I spoke from a previous relationship of mine when I revealed this. The person, my significant other, said, "Are you stupid?" And I sat there and I thought, I've been with this person for so many years. How could they say that to me? But the taboo around it is ludicrous. And that's where, by bringing it to greater visibility to everyone on the planet, especially those close to you in schools, in workplaces, to say to them, hey, it's not taboo. You need to talk about this. Bring it up to people that you trust. And hopefully, with enough education in society in general, people won't just brush it under the rug. They will say, this is an issue. This is having an effect on this person that I care about. Their school grades, their self-esteem, their social skills, everything about them is being drastically affected. And it doesn't just happen to school-age children. It happens to adults. With enough bullying, if we realize as a society that there are people who, I use the term walk among us, that have no remorse, they have no empathy, no sympathy, and for them to be a bully doesn't cause them any anxiety. They don't care. So by making the general public aware that these people are out there and they can cause real damage to a person's psyche, their self-esteem, their ability to interact socially, those people need to be counseled as to their actions, but the real victim, the person who's been bullied, is the people are the people that we have to focus on. We have to educate them, reassure them that it's not them, depersonalize it. It's not you. You have been manipulated. You have been trashed. Your reputation has been tainted by someone who really doesn't care. They're looking for their own justification, their own agenda, their own status in society. I won because of this, that, or the other thing. Well, that's not good enough. We need to really work with the people who have been victimized and take away the stigma. That's what it's all about. And the Rick Mercer has been a great advocate of this. He's had, I believe, some billboards about mental health all across Canada, trying to get people to realize that mental health is not something you sweep under the rug. And we've got we have to push a noodle up a hill. We've got a big mountain to climb, but I believe as a society we're beginning to become more aware of it. How do we do it? We have to just keep after it. Just like, I think it was it Edison who created the light bulb?
Yes.
He found 10,000 ways that the light bulb didn't work. He didn't give up. So anybody who believes in this problem we have in society won't give up. And that's my perspective as well, because throughout my whole life I've seen it. When I began to study who these people were that were the perpetrators, I realized, it's one of those aha moments. Not me. These people have this profile about them that they just don't care. They have no care or concern for anyone else. It's only their own agenda. They don't feel bad when something happens to somebody. If you look at some of the people who have been put to death in the U.S. for multiple homicides, one of the pictures is I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he's being read his rights, and he's wearing an orange suit, and they're describing to him what he's being charged with. He's looking up in the sky going, yeah, whatever. Yeah, okay, go ahead, whatever. Absolutely no compassion for his victims, which to most of us we think, holy cow, where did this guy come from? But in reality, they are out there, and there's lots of them. That's the message I really want to drive home.
And I just have one final question. Really quickly, what advice do you have for people who feel like they have no way out, or who feel like they're being bullied and don't really know how to deal with it?
My best advice is educate yourself as much as possible and go to someone right now that you trust and explain how you're feeling. And when I say educate yourself, read books, talk to counselors, and realize that it's not you. You may have some personality traits that make you a good target, but if you learn about how people see you as a target, then you'll be able to realize that when someone's bullying you, they're doing this because I behave X, Y, or Z way. And by realizing it's a two-way street, you'll be able to identify those people and prevent yourself, I guess, from being sucked into this downward spiral of making it a personalized situation. It's not you. You're a good person. You care. But the other person sees that, and that's why they take advantage. It's very much of a process, but don't take it personally, number one. Number two, educate yourself. Learn about them. Figure out how they behave, why they behave that way, and do this you trust.
Excellent. And Bill, that's all the time we have. I'd like to thank you for taking the time to join us on the program here. And if you just want to maybe let our listeners know how they can find out more information about Care for Bullied.
Our website is care4bullied.com, and my Twitter tag is at care4victims. We also have links to our website on there and phone numbers. That's the best way to reach us.
Excellent. And on that note, our listeners, we have also got, you can find them through our Twitter page there as well. We are following Care for Victims on Twitter, and we'd be happy to lead you in that direction if you can't find them. Again, Bill, we'd like to thank you for joining us on the program and taking time out of your busy schedule to join us.
Thank you very much, Ben. I certainly appreciate it.
We'd like to thank you all for tuning into the program tonight. That was an interview with Bill Gove of Care for Bullied, an organization which is a nationally recognized support group for victims of bullying. And we again would like to thank both of our guests for taking the time to join us on the program tonight. Again, a shout out to Levi Lafont, and also a big thank you as well to Bill Gove for joining us on the program. We appreciate you both taking the time out of your very busy schedules to speak with us, to share with us your experiences, and to talk with us a little bit about this very important subject. On that note, we have reached the end of our program here. We would love to spend endless hours talking about this. And in fact, we realized that we didn't have, as a program where typically our listeners have an opportunity to call in, being that we had live interviews this week, we are going to make this into a two-part show. So join us next week. We're going to continue the discussion on bullying. And just a reminder to our listeners that you can chime into our program anytime by calling the studio line, which is 403-329-5189. We're wrapping up the show, so the phone lines are closed at the moment. But we just want to remind you that if you've got something to say, we'll be back next week. We're here every Friday night at 7 p.m. for the subject. You can also follow us on Twitter at the subject CKXU, or by using hashtag More Than Talk Radio. I'm your host, Ben Christensen. My co-host, Mr. Thomas Stone, here.
Good night, Lethbridge, and I look forward to hopefully engaging with you next week.
We want you to join us next week. We are going to continue our discussion on bullying here. We want to thank you again for tuning into the program. We'll see you all next week.